Which one of the following sentences is wrong? That is the teacher to whom I spoke yesterday. That is the teacher whom I spoke to yesterday. That is the teacher who I spoke to yesterday. That is the teacher to that I spoke yesterday. That is the teacher that I spoke to yesterday. That is the teacher I spoke to yesterday. The answer is number 4 is wrong. In this lesson, you will learn how to correctly make sentences using adjective clauses with prepositions. With each of the sentences from before, there are 2 parts: the main clause in blue and the adjective clause in red. When we look closely at the clauses, we can see 2 sentences. That is the teacher, and I spoke yesterday to her, where the red sentence tells us more about the first sentence. In the first part, teacher and her mean the same thing, and to is the preposition. Now, to put the sentences as one adjective clause sentence, to her needs to move right after teacher. Then we need to replace her with an adjective clause pronoun such as whom. We can also move the preposition to after the verb spoke. Instead of whom, we can also use the informal who. We can even replace who with that. We can leave out the adjective clause pronoun completely. So we have, that is the teacher I spoke to yesterday. When we talk about people in adjective clauses, we can use whom, who, that, or nothing. But if you want the preposition right after the noun being described, for example here, the teacher, then the only choice we have is whom. Here's another example with the main clause in blue and the adjective clause in red. Here's the email about which I told you. Here's the email which I told you about. Here's the email that I told you about. Here's the email I told you about. Again, when we look at the clauses more closely, we can see 2 sentences. Here is the email, and I told you about it, where the red sentence tells us more about the first sentence. In the first part, email is the same as it, and about is the preposition. The adjective clause sentence tells us more about the email in the main clause. As in the last example, we need to move the preposition close to the noun we are describing. But this time we replace it with which. Or we can move about to the end of the adjective clause. We can change which to that, or even take it out completely. Now when we describe things instead of people, we have to use which, that, or nothing. But after the preposition, we must use which only. Now let's look at another example. I called the man to whom I sent the email. I called the man whom I sent the email to. I called the man who I sent the email to. I called the man that I sent the email to. I called the man I sent the email to. But in reality, the most common written form of the sentence is the one with that. But in speaking, the most common form is the one without a pronoun. In this lesson, you learned how to correctly make sentences with adjective clauses with prepositions. Thanks for listening.